Hi, Steve.
Hi, Jim.
We don't disagree about much when we're talking about records, but I got to say, we've got the Ramones, the Dead Kennedys, and the Dead Milkmen.
Well, they got the Sex Pistols, the Clash, and the Damned.
All right, well, this tops them all. We've got the Chipmunks. Hey, everyone, and welcome once again to Two Guys Talking About Records, a vinyl community podcast where each week we two guys get together and, believe it or not, we talk about records. My name is Jim, and I own a record store.
And I am Steve, a record collector. And Jim's kind of exciting. Last few weeks we've been talking about a lot about lettuce, but now we're going to move on to something else.
We're going to move on to punk this week, and this is one of those chicken egg things, I think, Steve, as far as which came first, which is better, British punk or American punk. I've got some arguments because my inroads were American punk, and I've got British punk, and I like it and I enjoy it, but I tend to lean toward the U.S. side, America.
America. And my inroads into punk was definitely the British side. And yeah, I mean, that's where it's at, man.
All right. Well, we will delve into this delicate subject. I think we can remain friends throughout, though. I don't see this coming to fisticuffs at some point. We'll see.
Well, I was going to go out, kind of get myself a mohawk before this. I thought, we should just come in and look. And there's nothing more exciting than a guy in his mid-60s walk around with a mohawk.
They're like, what in the world? The T-shirt will do you. How's that? That's your anarchy right there.
That's right. Exactly.
All right, so we will get to that here in a little bit on the show, as well as I've got to start your ear off right anomaly. I would like to bring up as well from this year's Rhino campaign. Interesting. We'll see where we go from there. But as we do each and every week here on the podcast, we like to start off with our most recent pickups and additions to the ever-growing collections. Even though Steve is purging, you're still adding. So it's kind of like it's balancing out, I would think.
I got to purge so I can add.
There we go. Binge and purge, binge and purge. And I've got a few cool things to add in here this week as well. But again, I think we've talked about this before. When I don't so much purge as I decide, well, I just slip this into the shelves at the store and have at it. So I've got that ability where it's a little different for you. But what do you got this week to show off?
Well, I got some really good stuff. I've purged 148 albums now.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
Now
I've listened to 220.
Okay. Let's clarify this. By purge, you mean you've pulled them off your shelf and put them on the floor?
In the closet, though.
In the closet, okay.
That's like purging. Yes, they have been relegated to the closet, and so and then it's like, so now what do I do with them?
You have not separated yourself from them completely yet.
Not quite yet. We're going to finish this up, but I've done pretty good. I've worked on through all my rock LPs now, and I'm starting into about halfway through all of my world music.
Okay.
Then we got funk, then we got jazz, then we got blues and country and classical.
Are you giving yourself a deadline for this?
Yes, before I die. So
you got a long time then. You're good.
Exactly. I just like to keep it fluid like that.
As long as you keep eating and or listening to lettuce, you'll get that longevity up there.
Yes. Yeah. Just talked about them on my broadcast today.
I saw that today, sir. I saw that. All right. Well, what you got this week?
Man, there's just some really cool stuff. I've talked about this group once before. It's Mono. They're out of Japan. Very much instrumental post-rock. Their music, it's the type. It's this is almost more neoclassical. It has that feel to it. It always starts slowly, and the music builds and builds and builds as it goes. Gorgeous stuff. They are going to be tour. I was trying to check out to see if I could take in one of their tours. I'm going to have to go down to Mexico or South America right now, but you never know. But this album came out in 2009, And what's really kind of neat on this, and it's a 2 album set. Again, it's instrumental, but the songs on the back here, they have on each song has a piece of art and explains the storyline.
Wow, that is cool.
So isn't that nice? I mean, that is really interesting. And it's about two people, and I don't know, they jump into a cliff. I haven't got through to read, but here's they seem fairly happy in this one together in a stone circle for some reason. So a lonely one. So yeah, it's really this. It's fascinating what they did with the artwork to do that. So every song has a description of the story they're trying to tell.
And I know you like it when the inserts really add to the piece, don't they?
Yes, they do. And so it'll never be released on Record Store Day because they'd have to put those inserts in to really make it. Well, but there, I'm absolutely in love with this group. The music is just gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's definitely not punk.
Definitely.
It gets labeled as post rock, and I would say this one definitely has neoclassical leanings because they got a full orchestra backing them. It's just 4 people from Japan that do it.
Cool.
And so, moving from something like that, we come into My Life in a Thrill Cult, Sexploitation.
Thrill Kill Cult. I remember them.
Yeah, I had this single, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's a great album. That's a great album." So, alrighty then, I now have the album. My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult, and the label's interesting because when the spindle goes in there, well, we won't explain that anymore. We're
visually
they kind of put that mouth. They put that mouth in a really interesting place. This is fun. I mean, it's from the late 80s. This is industrial, techno kind of stuff. I like that music, and this is just. It's kind of a hoot, just vroom, 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 vroom. Yeah, good stuff. Fun cover. Yeah, I had to give it a shot. Had some VCLT come in this week, which I was not expecting whatsoever. And we had him on our podcast last year. Steve, A is for Melis, B is for Bob, C is for whatever. He's purging. He had shown a porcupine tree. Everyone talks to me about Porcupine Tree. Everyone shows Porcupine Tree. Am I going to really like it? Is it going to be too slow or too proggy or whatever? And so Steve says, this Porcupine Tree, he was showing it. He was talking about this during his purge. He's going to keep it. He goes, this is the most Pink Floyd-like Porcupine Tree said. Oh, now that of course put out, my head, what? Pink Floyd? And it's called The Sky Moves Sideways. So I just said, all right, maybe that's where I need to start with Porcupine Tree. I commented and wrote back. He wound up buying the album, sending it to me.
Wow, cool.
And there is definite Pink Floyd leanings in there. You get a little bit of that Echoes type sound going on. There's a lot of instrumental. There is some vocal on here. It's a nice 2-album set. I really liked this a lot. I don't think I'll be a completist, but I do want to get more of their music. I just don't understand what a porcupine tree is.
Well, they'll climb them, as I recall. But I mean, that's a Steven Wilson project. He's the one that does a lot of these prog remixes. So he's got his finger on the pulse of what that classic prog era sounds like. So I would imagine that would come through in his group.
Yeah, that's exactly, which is always kind of, I just have never gotten into prog. When I was younger, I liked it a little bit better, but just punk, baby. the most anti-prog music out there.
Yep.
So, about this, The Church, Heyday. This is kind of before they did Starfish. There was another group, another channel on YouTube, Married with Vinyl. Their church is their biggest, is the most favorite band, and they were talking about this as really a cool album to get. And I have one church, the one with Starfish on there.
Yep.
The one church everyone has. This is really Paisley Underground, which for those of you that are just listening, they're all wearing Paisley shirts. So we're just, that's kind of our dead giveaway on this. But it's definitely great harmonies are happening. I know nothing about the early church. I do want to get their first album, which goes for stupid money. So I've kind of just got it on a want list, watching to see if something good comes in. But this one wasn't too inexpensive. I think it came out in 85. So it's the church heyday.
My only experience really with the church is, I think, Under the Milky Way, the song there,
Yes.
and that tends to be a little more goth Cure like to me, and not so Paisley. So that's,
Mm-hmm.
to hear that they're on the Paisley on that side is interesting. But
Yeah. Because that's before then they kind of began switching directions.
cool.
This was so that same channel talked about this. I went out. It's called Rainy Day, is the name of the group. This came out, I believe, in 84. What makes this interesting is the group Green on Red.
Yeah.
You remember that from
Yep.
college. They were having a barbecue. Okay. So Green on Red's having this barbecue, and they invite over friends from the Dream Syndicate, from the 3 o'clock, from the Rain Parade, and from the Bangles.
Wow.
All right. So we got all these, the California, Paisley Underground. All these people are coming there. And of course, they're having, burgers or vegan burgers, probably,
Yeah.
drinking some beer, and just begin talking and go, we should do an album. Yeah, let's do an album. Yeah, have a few beers and everyone wants to do an album. So a bunch of these different players from all those groups do this album of covers. It's really, Susanna Hoff does I'll Be Your Mirror by the Velvet Underground, and she slays it.
Wow.
She also does I'll Keep It Mine. I mean, they do Flying on the Ground Is Wrong, the Sloop John B. It's not the Beach Boys, kids. Rainy Day, Dream Away. It's just an album of covers, and on the back they have who's doing it. And so all those great Paisley Underground bands, they put this album out. So it's that Married with Vinyl again. They had talked about this, but they're really into the 80s. I go, God, that just sounds absolutely fascinating. So
And that's called Rainy Day. It's just a self-titled.
Rainy Day. And how about that? That's what happens at barbecues, which is kind of why you want to have barbecues, because suddenly you put out a record album.
Okay, then I'll keep that in mind for this summer.
Yeah, that's right. See, we're looking forward for that first album, Jim. And that's all I have to show this week. There's more, but
all righty. Well, just a couple for me this week, an interesting one. Into the promotional items, folks that have been listening know that I have this affinity for promotional records. I've got a Supertramp Breakfast in America. And this is not a white label promo, but when you get inside, it does have the promotional labels there too. It'll say right on there, promotional copy not for sale. So not all white label records are promo, but some regular labels can be stamped and that such. But what makes this really interesting, it's a great Supertramp album, by the way, but what makes this
my
interesting
favorite
is that I have got a menu insert.
Oh, wow.
To go with the theme. And so when you get into the front, just says Breakfast in America, but it's shaped like a diner menu. And when you get inside, the front inner part has their Supertramp will be serving Breakfast in America live in your city soon. And it lists all of the cities from that particular tour. I forget, 1979, 1980 tour. Then they got their special listed in there as well. Now, I did a little research on this because I had not run across anything with a menu insert or heard about that before.
Yeah.
So how it ended up in a U.S. copy, a U.S. promotional copy, is anyone's guess. But I did find some info that these menu inserts were done in conjunction with a Canadian record store at the time of release. It was something the record store did, and they included them with some promotional copies or some copies with that record store. So somewhere along the line, somebody picked up this and paired it up with this, and now it's here in this collection.
That's awesome. That is
So
absolutely so freaking cool.
it
Wow.
is. Yeah, but yeah, it's like I said, I could be wrong. Maybe if somebody in the comments catches me, I don't believe that there was a U.S. promotional pressing that included that menu insert, but I'm happy to have that. It's very cool.
Well, someone brought that into the story, and you just go, whoa.
Yeah,
Cool.
that's how a lot of it happens. Okay, I picked up a bootleg. Outside of my comfort zone bootleg, I picked up a Who, Old England, New England. I got this from one of our distributors. They had kind of a clearance on these, and I decided to nab one for myself and a couple from the store. This was it's one of those new reissues. This one's Gimme Records, but it's all those European. I think they just name whatever, and it's one pressing plant that just kicks them out. But this is a Massachusetts radio broadcast from 1970. They're really big on billing a lot of these newer bootlegs as radio broadcasts so that they can give a little bit air of better quality than an audience recording type of thing or a soundboard recording, even though most of these are soundboard recordings that just happen to be broadcast somewhere on the radio. So, but what's kind of cool about this, the sound quality is actually pretty good. It's definitely unofficial bootleg quality. It's not perfect, but it's not also a terrible audience recording. But what makes this really neat is the insert in the gatefold, or not the insert, but the inside of the gatefold says that a year after their stunning performance at Woodstock, the Woodstock Festival, it's obviously written overseas. It's not translated. Performance at Woodstock Festival in August of 1969. But before the project had become a stage play in 1972 or a movie in 1975, The Who were continuing to perform their extraordinary rock opera Tommy. So this LP features The Who's performance at the Tanglewood, Lenox, Massachusetts, in the summer of 1970, where they played the entirety of Tommy alongside with a host of their other classics, such as I Can't Explain and the recently released, at that point, Heaven and Hell and My Generation. So this is The Who working out Tommy prior to the release of that and through there, and it's a live one. It's really cool. There's some audience banter. But still a cool find and one of those newer bootleg releases. So very cool.
You know, what blows me away on that album cover is Peter Townsend jumping. I mean, he looks like he should be a basketball player. He is so high off the ground. That guy could slam dunk. Wow.
He's wearing his pre-Air Jordans in that case. And really, he's got a good,
he's up in the air.
Got a good 4 or 5 feet. And that's,
wow.
He is. And that's with his guitar. So,
gee.
All right.
Should have been played basketball.
Also in this, and I know I talked to you about this band a couple of weeks ago, Steve, I decided to crack a copy open and give it a listen. This is a band called Racing Mount Pleasant. And this is a newly reissued copy of their first album called Grip Your Fist, I'm Heaven Bound. These guys are a Michigan band. They are from Ann Arbor. Let me call up my info on them. Discogs calls this indie rock, just straight up indie rock. This one, by the way, this particular release is on, they've got 2 or 3 versions of it. This one is a caramel apple release. So it's brownish. We'll call it that, but they call it caramel apple. They have got another one called candy apple, which is basically just a different shade of brown. And then they've got a bone white one. This is an interesting group. It is, in my opinion, it's indie rock meets smooth jazz meets classical, but all of a sudden you've got just a burst of fuzz guitar in there once in a while that comes through. It really kind of defies explanation. So Discogs, like I said, they call them indie rock, but if you dig a little bit deeper in this, Wikipedia calls it, they are an intricate mix of strings, horns, and emotional storytelling. Their sound is described as art rock, chamber pop, indie folk, featuring complex arrangements with horns and strings. So I listen to it. I dig it. But like I said, it's this real kind of smooth jazz feel. I guess they've been compared to Arcade Fire. I'm not a big Arcade Fire fan. But they definitely have got some flavorings of just like the saxophone comes in, ever smooth, and then it punches in with some heavy fuzz guitar. So it's really interesting stuff. I'll put it in the playlist preview so folks can listen to it and see what they think as well. But this was their first album released originally in I have to go back to 2023, and they've only got the two albums. This one was released in 22. I'm sorry. Then their self-titled one was just released last year in 2025. So they kind of went backwards and did this one first. I don't have a copy of their first. It was released, or their second one rather. It was released, but went on back order. So I'll have to decide whether I want to add it in. Interesting stuff. I've got one more album adding to the collection, Steve, but I haven't opened it yet. I wanted to do it here on the podcast to see what this is, a special one. And this ties into our main subject today of punk rock. This one got by me back in, I'm trying to think, 2024 Record Store Day, so just a couple of years ago. The Dead Milkmen and Bucky Fellini. Now, the Record Store Day folks have been going through some of the Dead Milkmen catalog the past couple of times and reissuing these through the Giving Groove label, kind of expanding them. So, and I don't know why this one got by me, because I've got an original of the Milkmen's Bucky Fellini, but I found this, and it's a Record Store Day 2024, and it says remastered on ducky yellow vinyl. Now, I didn't realize this, again, because this got by me. Let me call up my my page here. Originally released, by the way, in 1987, and I do have a good original on this. Anything, I think probably one of the biggest ones off of this. This is not one of their biggest ones, but Instant Club Hit is on here. Rocket Ship is a great one. Surfin' Cow is a great song on here as well. But as we go down into this in 24, when I went to go look for this, and I haven't opened it because I wanted to do it on the podcast, the Record Store Day edition is yellow, and it's listed there. But then there are two others called an Ortho Orange, number 42, and a Bucky Blowout 4. So in reading on this is interesting. Let's go into this. So the original one here, it says it was limited to 5,000 copies of the regular Record Store Day release from Giving Groove. But in the notes on the orange one, the Ortho Orange, it says this is a Record Store Day release from 2024. The hype sticker is the same as the main release, indicating ducky yellow vinyl. However, this extremely limited edition variant, one of 99, is indicated by a special embossed imprint on the inside of the gatefold. The imprint reads, "You have found Ortho Orange 42," and then the individual numbered copy out of 99. This includes a poster by the band. So out of 5,000, I find this sealed up. It could be one of those 100 special editions. And then further, just because I go back into this, there's another version called the Bucky Blowout, same as before. It's got the same hype sticker as the regular Ducky Yellow, but this says it's an extremely limited edition variant, one of 4. One of 4 copies numbered. You have found a Bucky Blowout, individually numbered out of 4 copies, includes a poster accompanied by an original Joe Jack talcum illustration on the inner sleeve. Vinyl cover is a mix of many. So this is really weird. This says 6, according to Discogs, 6 people have this, 41 want it. But if there's only 4, how do 6 people have it?
Exactly.
I don't quite understand that. Math is hard. But on the other one, the one that out of 100, this one is more realistic. 40 people are showing us have it, but 48 want it. So, you ready for me to open this up, Steve? We'll see what's inside.
So this is your Geraldo Rivera moment when he went to do the Capone Vault.
The Capone Vault. You know? After all that build-up, we're going to see what's inside.
After all that build-up, we're ready to go.
I have
Don't disappoint, Jim.
My trusty X-Acto knife. Let me call this up here so folks can see that it is indeed sealed, and I am opening this sucker up.
It's indeed sealed.
We will go through here.
There's no sleight of hand involved with this.
None whatsoever. I'm even going to slice it down there. Here it goes, Steve.
I'm peeing my pants right now, Jim. I am just so damn excited about this.
Well, you did mention you're getting up there in years. So.
Yep.
Ta-da.
Whoa.
Oh, this is not the...
It is the Capone Vault, after all.
It is the Capone Vault. And it is on Ducky Yellow.
Well, show us at least what Ducky Yellow
Ducky
looks
Yellow
like.
looks like that.
Yeah,
Well,
it
it was
looks
worth
like
a
Ducky
shot,
Yellow.
Steve.
Yeah,
So,
it was. It was exciting there for a minute.
so this is the expanded. I do have all of the other RSD Dead Milkmen ones as well. So this was kind of a neat little add in through here. It does have that little poster as well. The poster that you'll never put up.
Yep. We love posters, just they go back in, never to be seen again.
There is the poster.
Yep.
All right. Well, that was exciting and anticlimactic. So I'm with Geraldo right now.
Everyone's clicking off the broadcast right now. They're just okay.
We're done. With big
Why
deal,
bother?
Jim. Whatever. All right, folks. As we do each and every week when we cover our pickups and anything else we talk about, it's going to be a big playlist this week. We will put together a Spotify playlist to give you a chance to listen in on some of the music that we talk about. You can find that link to the description link to the playlist rather in the description of all of the episodes. You can hear that on the BLEAVE description on our wonderful network, as well as on the YouTube description on down the line. So, all right, Steve, we are going to get into that punk discussion here in a moment, but I've got one quick thing to point out here. This is just an oddity. You know, we talked about the Start Your Ear Off Right campaign. It feels a couple months back. It feels like now. There was a lot of hype to it, and then here in the store, at least, it was just kind of, I think a lot of them got delayed here and there. There just wasn't a demand for a lot of those titles, with the exception of some of the Rush titles. Those came in. But also on a previous episode, I had added in a copy of Rush Clockwork Angels to my collection that when it showed up, it was a new reissue, but it had a Rocktober sticker on it. And I thought, remember I brought that up. It was not a Rocktober release.
Yeah.
But it also wasn't included in that Rush box set that was a Rocktober release. So I thought, okay, little oddity. We'll see what happens here. Then they announced all of the Rush titles in the Start Your Ear Off Right campaign. Those showed up here at the store. You know, we're at the end of January now, heading into February. And all of these show up in the Start Your Ear Off Right campaign. I'm going to call this up here with Rocktober hype stickers on them. Every single one of the Rush releases from Start Your Ear Off Right has a Rocktober hype sticker.
Someone's at the factory. Oh, we I'll slap them on. No one's going to notice.
No one's going to notice. My guess is these were meant to be Rocktober releases, and then they decided, let's put them in a box set. Everybody loves box sets. We'll even get Steve to buy one. So,
okay.
I don't think this counts as a misprint. I just think it counts as we decided something different. We changed our minds, and we don't want to reprint hype stickers.
Yeah. It's just a cost saving there. Okay. So
there's your rarity.
Rhino, start your year off right, but so far the sales on it hasn't really started the year off right whatsoever.
We're going to start your ear off right with the hype stickers from last October. So,
yeah.
All right. I like American Punk, Steve. I'm just going to throw that right out there.
I don't mind American punk, but I find that UK punk was revolutionary. American punk had attitude.
Yep.
UK punk was revolutionary.
And revolutionary, I think, in the sense of you can throw the term political into there. Not to say that a lot of early American punk wasn't political, but it just wasn't to the extent. I'm talking, okay, you get into some Dead Kennedys. Jello Biafra could, and still is, quite opinionated on lots of stuff. Yeah. But the American punk, I just think it seemed to be more, let's just go have fun. But it does predate, and some of the research I said, by at least a year or so, it predates the true emergence of British punk rock. And you talk about things like the Ramones, that's going to be pretty much first and foremost kicking things off. Not that they're the first, but their performance at CBGB's in 74, I believe, was really kind of the kickoff to American punk movement. You've got that happening in New York, and then almost a little bit later, you've got that happening in Los Angeles. And it wasn't until 76 that the UK started kicking into gear with their super their version of punk rock.
Yeah. Uh, and yeah, there's the very first Ramones, and
Yep.
good album, but I never super got into them. I mean, for the Dam put out the first album in the UK, but the Sex Pistols, eh, this was aggressive. It was political. In the US, I felt more more individual, more arty, shall we
Yep.
say. There was no art here. And the whole purpose of the Sex Pistols was anti Emerson, Lake, and Palmer.
Yep.
These guys suck. But it was just tired of everything. But to me, they start later because Malcolm McLaren was over here. He met Richard Hell. He saw what Richard Hell was wearing. He did the New York Dolls, tried to make them into something, but he was such a, shall we say, a showman, kind of like, Elvis's, Presley's The Colonel. Well,
Yep.
McLaren was like that. So he goes back and is looking, okay, look at this is catching on in New York. I'm going to make my sex shop about this and all that. And now I'm going to make a band, which he did. He put together the Sex Pistols, and he kind of really got things happening and going, just because that's how he was. I read a book about him, and that dude's weird, man.
Well,
He did know.
I'll agree with you that punk on both sides of the Atlantic it really kind of came into fruition as the antithesis of what music had become. Prog rock, and I'll pick on Floyd and Rush and through here and ELP, as well as a host of others, had became so, they elevated themselves into this hoity-toity attitude of symphonic backgrounds. Yes, as well.
Mm-hmm.
Dead Milkmen have a song that makes fun of Yes, one of theirs as well. But it came from there. But I think it's also interesting to look at how punk rock came to be. Not just that someday some guys decided we're going to make fun of these older prog bands or classic bands and go from there. But it grew out of that garage movement that separated the bands that had big names and big funding and just dudes jamming in their garage and having fun. And we can talk about this, of whether or not bands like the MC5 and the Stooges, both great Michigan bands, by the way, are punk rock acts, or that they're pre-punk, proto-punk. When they come into there, proto-punk. That is something that led directly to what happened in New York and LA and London with those more hardcore type of bands. But there are times that I'll just instinctively refer to the early Stooges as punk rock, and MC5, it's garage rock, but they've got a punk element coming through each of those.
And you can dig all the way back to rockabilly.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Because that is, so much of that, again, short, quick, concise songs, away they go. But it had this energy to it. And punk, let's face it, I mean, Emerson, Lake, Palmer, and all, they didn't have energy. Okay. It just goes on and on. But when a punk song comes out, it's 2 minutes for a reason. It's there to slam you around, pop you, knock you in the head, throw you down on the ground, and go, next song. And that's where I always found punk exciting. And that was so true in the UK because, I mean, they've really got nuts about it.
The idea of those short, quick, aggressive songs, back in the 80s when I was a college radio DJ, punk was, again, now entering its second decade. And that's where I hooked up with one of my first, even before the Ramones. I think the Ramones were second, but first and foremost for me were the Dead Milkmen, as mentioned. I got into Beelzebub first in 86-ish, 85, or when was this one? Was 80... I'm going to have to go back and try and think when that was. 88 was Beelzebub, but Big Lizard, along with Bitch and Camaro, was a little bit earlier in that. So the idea of these short, quick punk songs were very, very cool. But as a radio DJ, when we spun on vinyl, it was extremely challenging because no sooner did you press play than you're off trying to get something else queued up and ready to go, especially with a song like The Descendants. They got a couple that were only, and there are other bands, the Minutemen as well. You've got songs that are under a minute long, so you've got to be prepped and ready to go with that from the DJ perspective. But
Yes.
that my foray into punk is not that early 70s, either US or UK, because I started that in the mid 80s with the Dead Milkmen and then worked my
Hmm.
way backwards into the like of the Ramones.
Yeah. Now, see, my foray in punk was 1982. I'd heard about punk in college, the UK, but it's like I'd seen the Ramones, whatever. But in 1982, I had a friend come over, and he brought me uh, to listen to. It was a Cramps album, but it was the Sex Pistols, Stiff Little Finger, and the Clash,
Wow.
and that was musically speaking life changing for me. I says, this is what I've been missing, and uh, you know, here's one of the Damned, and that wasn't one of the first ones, but I quickly learned about the Damned, and that first album. This is what the first thing that came out, and really, great stuff. I got a new Rose neats on here.
Yep.
There isn't a punk compilation that doesn't have the Damned on there. And another one, from the U.S. you had, I don't know if you have this one, the Dead Boys. Dead Boys to me was trying to be. I mean, these guys were very obnoxious, and they were just. They came out of Cleveland. They went to New York. They were kind of said, "Hey, you need to come to New York. Your music's going to be loved there." And Crystal out of CBGB's tried to manage them, and we'll say tried to manage them.
Tried
They
to.
were wrecking his van and everything like that. But the Damned isn't as to me as politically charged as some of the other ones. But wow, did they make quick, fast
Yep.
music, and they kind of kept that punk flame going.
Now, the other on the US side, again, LA, we've got the New York side where you could even make an argument saying, okay, the Ramones are a punk band, but then you get the likes of Blondie in there. Yeah, the New York Dolls punk also. The Talking Heads, all of these bands that came through CBGBs in that era could have been considered punk early on until they grew and changed a little bit. Blondie obviously had a lot more pop, disco first, I think, a lot, but
Mm-hmm.
moved into the pop side. The Talking Heads became alternative or whatever you want to call them, but that all kind of grew out of punk. And that's where I think where my most of my influence is that post punk era, which we're not going to get into today, but I think that is where I draw a little bit more. But that comes from something like the Dead Milkmen, which maybe I guess it's a good way to look at it too. In the U.S., in that 80s era, not the original 70s stuff, but the 80s era, it became less serious punk rock.
Mm-hmm.
Dead Milkmen, most certainly. Then you get in the likes of the Dead Kennedys, also, it's still punk rock. Some of it serious, some of it not. And I think that was just the attitude a lot of the bands in the 80s in the
Yeah.
U.S.
And when I think, to me, yeah, Dead Kennedys is like the next version. U.S. punk morphed into hardcore.
Yep.
And so now you have Black Flag, Dead Kennedys. I mean, basically, California, punk really started, you think about, out in New York City.
Yep.
But the second wave that came in was out in California, L.A., San Diego, Minor Threat. I mean,
Yeah. Black
yeah.
Flag, the Misfits, Minor Threat.
Mm-hmm.
There's some great labels too
Exactly.
that came out. Sub Pop. These are store stock, by the way. But Sub Pop just gathered these bands together and put them out as compilations, and maybe they would land their own full albums. But there was a lot of great stuff
Yeah.
coming out in that more hardcore era.
And UK punk fizzled by 1979. I mean, there's no way punk was going to last. Because it became almost elitist, oh, you're not cool enough to be punk, you don't have this or that. And so it really changed quick, but the punk turned into post-punk.
Yep.
Over there. And then you have Public Image Limited, you have like Joy Division, Wire, which started punk, really went post-punk. But there were some, like the Clash, they kept to the roots, but what they do? Go more reggae, right?
Yep.
I mean, brought in a lot of different sounds. They morphed, definitely was changing their style. And they became popular on radio by the early 80s with
Well,
a Rock in the Casbah.
yeah, and look what the Clash morphed into throughout the 80s. You've got Public Image Limited, you've got Big Audio Dynamite, all the splinters that came off of that, which started
Hmm.
as punk. But it's kind of a, I guess, an expected growth and change.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had this one. Someday I got to get an original. It's the Heartbreakers. It did. That's as punk was. These groups were breaking off. Johnny Thunders began doing the Heartbreakers. He went over to England, and he was considered like a god over there. They all liked him, which was good for him because they were finding him heroin. So, it's good to have friends
Yeah.
because he needed to be hooked up a lot. And I mean, his tour over there was a disaster, but everyone really looked up. That's Johnny Thunders. So the UK punk scene was very much aware of American punk and was very, much worshipped it. But US punk to me was more underground.
Yep.
While in the UK, it was out front. It was very much embraced by the media in the UK as the end of the world was happening. And everywhere in the newspapers, they talked about this. There's so much press on the British punk scene. In the US, they talk about it, but in the Midwest, we never heard about it. But you could not miss it in the UK. So album sales in the US weren't great on punk albums. A lot of those groups didn't sell much. In the UK, they sold like crazy.
When did I'm a little cloudy on this? When did the Heartbreakers hook up with Tom Petty?
Yeah.
That's a joke, folks. I'm sorry, that is a joke. I know the difference. One other quick one, talking about moving and changing. The Police. I truly believe that the Police in the UK started as a punk band. What I've got here is a bootleg copy called Vinyl Villains. It's a Police performance from the Whiskey a Go Go in March of 1979 in California and in Los Angeles. These guys were a punk band at that point
Yeah,
in
they
time.
were.
And then by the time they get their first album, you've got that more experimentation with pop. You've got that almost a reggae feel in some of their stuff. And don't get me wrong, there were some punk infused or post punk songs that the Police did, but they morphed into whatever they did. And then Sting obviously went on to become Sting
Yeah.
throughout.
Well, half of Britain says they were at the first Sex Pistols show
It's kind of like
and
going to
started a
Woodstock.
band. Yeah, exactly. I was there, and so everybody, but it was shown that you don't have to have talent. Sex Pistols prove you don't have to have talent. You really don't need to know how to play. You got to have attitude.
Yep.
And the Ramones were showing that too. But by the time it became popular, they actually were quite good at what they were doing. Here's Stiff Little Fingers in Flammable Material, one of my top albums of all time. They're out of Belfast, out of the UK, and it is so highly charged, so political
Yep.
because it's in Belfast with all that crap
Oh, yeah.
going on.
Yep.
And I got an original vinyl, but I need to get an original again with the cover because yeah, I mean, it's just a favorite. But we had, I want to show this one. Now, this is out of, New York. Hit my mic. Richard Held and the Voidoids, Blank Generation. Again, he broke up. He was with Television,
Yep.
but kind of got kicked out of the band for being a showman. But this is the guy that got everything going with Malcolm McLaren. And he goes, this guy has attitude. And he did. He was a showman. Was he great at singing? Not necessarily, but he knew how to get people excited. So that is a cool, nice original. But I don't know, Stiff Little Finger to me just still blows my socks off. There's so much energy and power. I found that UK was very image conscious. It was you have to have the look. Again, Malcolm McLaren, sex. You need to have, bondage pants, everything like that. You didn't see that so much in the US, but what happened is it created a lot of posers.
Yeah.
And just I want to be cool. I want to look cool. We're going to get that, and suddenly, 60-year-old grandpa's walking around in bondage pants or something. Damn, I'm cool. So it was fashionable too. US, Ramones, the leather jackets. Well, they had been going on for a long time, but they brought them back and made them popular. But UK went bonkers on it.
I'm sidetracking here for a little bit, but this aired on MTV for quite a while, but I know it originated in Britain in the BBC, and that was that older television, very short run television show called The Young Ones. Do you remember these guys at all?
No, I don't.
It represented, I think, three or four stages of music in these four roommates sharing a flat in London. You've got I think Neil was the character's name, who was kind of the old stoner representing the older rock type stuff. There was a true hardcore punk guy. There was a post-punk guy, and then there was a mod. And it's really just far out comedy. I'll have to send you a link on that. But yeah, the Young Ones, I think in the 80s represented this clash of musical stylings brought together as roommates in this very contrived situation. It's very bizarre, but you might recognize it if you see it. But yeah, check that out if you get a chance. Back to the U.S. side, I'm sorry that I do have to move us into the late 70s, early 80s with a lot of this stuff. But some other favorites of mine, the Dickies. You bring these guys in. These guys are really the precursor. I think I've got a Green Day up there. Green Day is a ripoff of the Dickies, straight up. Green Day, we'll talk about that 90s punk. They're kind of the Muppet Babies of punk rock, in my opinion. But the Dickies, they really kicked it out doing that mix of covers, that real short, quick stuff. And then they took, on their covers especially, they do a Knights in White Satin punk cover, The Eve of Destruction, as a punk cover, and a lot of their own stuff. And I've got the Jim Bowie song and the Killer Clowns as the Dickies moved through the 80s. But in the 70s, these guys were really up in there. But other favorites too, in that vein of the West Coast, the Descendants, of course. I know you've got the OG of the Descendants. My big one was All from 1987. Again, this is my college radio era. Very cool stuff. But this is almost morphing into more hardcore. Not quite the Descendants. They're punk straight up. But
yeah.
And then one I know that we share a mutual, and this is another one that has evolved between Bob Mould, everything from Husker Du to Sugar to Bob Mould's solo stuff all the way through. Do you consider these guys punk or are they alternative? Where do you stand on Husker Du first? And then
I
Bob
think
Mould?
To me, they started as hardcore. Hardcore punk is where you start. You listen to those first couple albums, and it's just screaming and loud. And then they moved me to more of the alternative college radio, definitely, when they began to quiet down.
It's Sugar, especially, I think, with Bob Mould. You did say that, I think we talked that he's trying to put Sugar back together?
Yes, it's going to happen this year.
That is
so
cool.
You're going to get it. They're going to reissue that first Sugar.
Very cool. Well, that's in those box sets, too. So.
Yes,
okay,
it is.
Minutemen. This is another one that bridges that gap. Is it punk? Is it alternative? Is it garage? It's very short, very quick, but punk-like, but then there's some that aren't, off of Double Nickels on the Dime especially.
Yeah, it's the only 2-album set that has 500 songs on
Yeah,
it.
you look on the back cover, it's got everything listed there. It goes by so quickly, which is another reason I think I didn't glom on to a lot of those early punk things when I was working radio, because it was labor intensive. I wanted to put on Low Spark of High Heeled Boys and go to the bathroom.
So that's why radios like to push prog. You can put it on. I'm just putting it on yes right now. I'm going to go out, get dinner, and I'll come back and it should be done.
It's still playing.
Here, when we think again, punk in the UK, and I'm just sticking to the 70s because that is just when punk was punk. I mean, but Wire, Pink Flag is such a classic album. It's aggressive again. It's political again. These guys have something to say. Society, things weren't good for the young, for the teenagers and early 20s in the UK, and they were just angry. Margaret Thatcher had come in. Everyone was pissed off. There was austerity measures. New York, I mean, during the late 70s sucked. I mean, there's trash everywhere. It was dirty. It was dangerous. So you have that. But in the UK, the young were just fed up, and that's where you get all this aggression, and that's what I truly love about the UK punk. It's aggression. Television, they were the very first band to play in CBGBs.
Yep.
They went to Billy Crystal, Billy Crystal. uh,
That's
uh,
marvelous, Steve.
Hilly Crystal, and said, "Hey, can we play?" Well, we're kind of country and blues. Yeah, but no one comes anyway. They were considered, punk, but this is arty. And
Yeah.
so that's where that I think that arty punk comes in, and of course then Richard Hell broke from this group. But I love that television. That first Marquee Moon's just a
That is a
favorite
great.
album.
I've got a promo copy of that somewhere here.
Wow. Another early of the punk ones was the adverts. And I'd recently received this as VCL tape, as I'd spent years trying to find an original of the adverts out of UK. Bored teenagers, One Chord Wonder, Safety in Numbers. Again, they're just looking at what's happening in society right now and coming out at it. Out of Cleveland, a punk. So again, it's the arty Per Ubu.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, very much arty, very much, huh? What's going on? But I love that first album that they had. And then just a couple others that I had when you think, the Buzzcocks came out.
Yep.
And now the Buzzcocks were making catchy songs.
They had a little more pop flair to that, some hooks.
Definitely more pop flair, and very exciting stuff that was coming. And the same with the Jam.
Yep.
And we have the Jam in the City.
Yep.
Yeah, both definitely. They were toning down. So the first punks were coming out. We're aggressive. We're coming at you, calming it down a little bit, giving people. They call it melody. And I guess that's what you could put on there. Oh, wow. All right. And you could sing to it. You didn't have to slam dance to it. You didn't have to wear crazy clothes because these guys were coming in with shirts and ties, which, hello, New Wave.
Yep.
Yep. They began dressing, and then other bands, especially power pop bands, suit and tie. So kind of punk moving into that.
Well, you think of the power pop that grew out of punk, especially here in the U.S. You've got bands like the Knack. Again, it's that same kind of almost a recreation of the Beatles look from the 1964 era. Gary Newman as well started, but that wasn't post-punk. That was a whole nother plane of existence with the electronic music until Gary Newman now, which is gone back to industrial side of things.
But that first Gary Newman album definitely had punk leanings into it.
The Tubeway
Army. Yeah. You listen to that and go, okay, you could see his influence. But as things were changing, and a lot of these groups began changing, doing something with their name because they did not want to be associated with punk. It had its heyday, 76, 77, and then people were moving away again, just because of the way people were going.
And I think if we look at some of these older punk artists, the ones that have survived, obviously, through to today, you get some that are sticking to that ethos, I think. You pick up Johnny Lydon now. What he is doing, basically kicked out of whatever is remaining of the Sex Pistols, because he still has that original ethos where he's anti-establishment, where so many of these other bands, and I'll pick on some U.S. ones like Green Day, are now seemingly part of an establishment. They're no longer have that we're against everything because we're punk type of thing, but we're against a certain thing and we're still punk, maybe. But Johnny Rotten's not, is he?
It's harder for them, for a 60-year-old to go anti-establishment than a 20-year-old doing it. It's like, oh, Grandpa's crabby again. There he goes. As you would say, Jim, it's a get off my lawn type moment here.
Exactly. I've got one other angle to take, and this is still in the post-punk era in the 80s, and I'll dive back to the Michigan collection, Steve. There are a lot of cool garage bands that have, Michigan's always been known for some garage band attitude kicking out. But in the 80s, they really moved into this almost, I don't even want to call it fun punk. It's just bizarre punk. And one of the bigger ones I've got is the band Snake Out. I know I've talked about these guys before. Another band, I don't have the album with me right now, but it's that Country Bob and the Blood Farmers, which is the mixture of the hellbilly type stuff, the hillbilly Cramps type music, garage music mixed with punk rock, mixed with the Dead Milkmen and the like. Pajama Slave Dancer is another one. They're not from Michigan, but the same type of thing. But these guys, Snake Out in particular, it's just got this very I don't give a crap attitude. We're going to play this just weird music and sing about completely and totally politically incorrect things, especially that country bop that we've talked about before. But that's just another offshoot that tended to be a little bit favorite of mine because, again, it's into that 80s. We've morphed into the post-punk, but still garage sounding stuff. But I like the Michigan ties on a lot of those.
Yeah. And I mean, there was, I think in the 80s, obviously you showed the Minutemen, Husker Du. The Replacements started very, very much a punk, but then they kind of leveled out. I just, and it could be wrong on this, but a lot of the punk started, no one really knew what they were doing. They didn't know how to play. So you just go loud and aggressive. You make a lot of noise. It kind of covers it up. But once they start to learn to play, their music starts to change. It starts to slow down because now we start doing more intricate things. It's not about just trying to blast it because it'll hide mistakes. Loud noise hides mistakes. And so you think of Replacements is just a prime example of how they went from this fast and furious punk and then slowed down and made more ballads were out there.
Yep.
They still could have a snotty attitude, but it really began changing. And Paul Westerfield, I mean, his writing changed too.
Yep.
But, Mission of Burma just stayed hard the whole time. they
like
never let up.
Like the Violent Femmes as well. But they had that Midwestern flair to them, being from Wisconsin, obviously. But one of the only ones that you get a vibraphone solo throughout in your punk rock. You like your punk rock with mallets. So.
Yeah. And it kind of just it depends on when you look at punk. I mean, American and UK punk were totally different. And punk was happening other places in the world, but just didn't catch on like that. But in UK, it swept the nation. I mean, it was in all corners, and again, it was the press. We've banned the Sex Pistols. They can't play this and that, and because it was fun stuff, we're like uncovering something. We got some dirt here, and that got the kids more excited about it, and they began buying it.
Anarchy in the UK.
It was definitely anarchy in the UK, thanks to the press and Malcolm McLaren, because he always felt that if we can get kicked out, we're doing great because it's press. Bad press is great press.
So, Steve, you're still leaning on that the UK punk is better.
Oh, by God. By
All right.
God, it is, Jim.
We'll agree to disagree. I like the US, but I'm more of an 80s guy. Apologize on that. What do you folks think, though? Yeah, what do you folks think? Please chime in the comments. Let us know which is better. Which came first? Obviously, the US. It was so close, but I think the US edges out. The UK, I think, has that edge as far as the political. There's one other one, Steve, we forgot completely about. And this is going to push you over the top, I think, and change your mind back to US punk being the best punk that there is. And that's chipmunk punk, Steve. This is the 80s. Straight up. This is not a punk album. Let's Go by the Cars, Good Girls Don't from the Knack. Refugee, but we mentioned Tom Petty, so the Heartbreakers did make this one as well. Blondie with
Real
Call
punk
Me,
going on.
a punk version of You May Be Right from Billy Joel, The Queen, and My Sharona. So two Knack songs on Chipmunk Punk. Jeez. Can't even call this a punk album, but that's a fun one. I digress. You win the argument. Based on that alone.
Man, I'm just, you know what, Jim? I congratulate you for being willing to show that from your collection and come out of the closet.
Steve, there's a sticker on it, so I cheated a little bit.
Okay.
That's
right.
store stock, Steve. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank God. Okay. You're back. Okay. Your credibility's come back now, Jim. Way to go.
There we go. I'll go back to my Dead Milkmen. How's that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, you folks have been listening and or watching to two guys talking about records, a vinyl community podcast. This has been a fun conversation, Steve. I do appreciate your insight. You're more of a go-to. I'm going to cede to your knowledge on the punk side of things than I could be in that earlier stages as well. So until next time, though, folks, my name is Jim, and I own a record store.
I'm Steve, and I own a record collection.
Glad we're still friends, Steve.
You got it, Jim. We'll do it again next week.